Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah. This is Friday, June 26th, 8:45 a.m. We're nearing the end of quarter 2 and we have had a crazy bullish expansion on the chip sector, and we are closing it out, and we're seeing some insane volatility in this last month of June. You can see that the chips had a huge breakout from 100, and we've been on our way to a target price of 327 and 340, but we've had 300 as a major take profit level, and you can see that after hitting 300 we indeed had a massive correction down to 217, 215 level, and this is exactly what we were looking for. Finding support over here, and we've been seeing a fractal W and cup and handle forming on NASDAQ, and we're potentially going to see something similar on the chips. We can see that we're consistently making higher lows, so we're overall very bullish. We are riding very high EMAs, so nothing has told us that we are in a downtrend or crashing or anything like that, but we predicted properly this take profit at 300, and we're aligning it with the NASDAQ. You can see that on the NASDAQ, firstly from the QQQ, we had a bullish breakout level at 556, and we were waiting for 6 months basically to really retrace and tap that. And once we did, we exploded off of this 556 level on the QQQ, and we created these 3 2-week candles, very strong body over here, and it closed over here at 711. And after that, my hypothesis was that we were going to make higher highs and lower lows and consolidate around the 711 level. And you can see that that is exactly what happened. Around the 711, it's been pivoting around here, and we'll have to see if we're going to dive below it for maybe a bigger liquidity sweep in the next quarter before we go up. But so far we've had these 2 or 3 higher highs that I was waiting for, and that aligned with the QQQ, the semiconductor ETF target. So what's going on now? Well, if our hypothesis aligns, then that means that we are on the right track. So after we closed over here, I wanted to tap into this weekly fair value gap, which we did, and then we made a higher high, so that's bullish. And then we swept the previous high and rejected back down. Then we got the middle of the weekly fair value gap, along with tapping into the 2-week fair value gap, which created another huge bullish impulse, but we did not get a higher high from that. So what's happened instead? We stopped at a lower high, but what we're seeing is a W cup and handle pattern forming. So that's why we are not sure if we're just going to take this lower low to the downside, this lower high to the downside, but we're just going to keep zooming in and seeing what's going on. So we see that after we tapped into this weekly fair value gap and 2 weekly, after getting this middle level, which was pretty precise, we did not make that higher high, and instead we double topped at a lower high. So that brought us down, and now we have to confirm this gap pretty much to be a resistance if we really want to dive lower. But what else are we seeing? If we look at the NASDAQ on the daily, we can see that in the futures market, we indeed use that fair value gap, the weekly fair value gap, to take us to a higher high, and then a slightly lower high, and that gives us a kind of a double top. So that's why we're kind of ending up the quarter on a double top, because there's immense profit taking in June happening, and then it retraced, created a new high, and then we're going down again. So as we're approaching the end of this quarter, this is with the warning that I was mentioning that we're going to have a lot of volatility. You can see we're actually going up and down 1 to 2,000 points regularly. So you have to be ready for that for your swings. And what we're seeing here, is that there's not much impetus to take us higher before this quarter is over. But what I'm seeing is that after correctly calling these double tops and these bearish patterns, we're actually getting lots of bullish impulses as we're going down. So technically, we're still bullish, as I mentioned, but we're just looking for a floor. And if we've corrected and start to go up again before June ends, that could be insanely bullish. So today, we are looking again, we're going to zoom in some more. And what I shared in the live Discord chat is that we've created a very common pattern that I see, that we see a 3 drives down pattern, then a short squeeze, and then a head and shoulders, and coming back down. And yesterday on stream, I said that we were going to reject and short from 29,836. And when I say short, I mean that in completely virtual simulated environments, that we're not actually shorting, to keep everything halal. But you can see that we successfully called that level pretty precisely. And now we've created a lower low, and now this signifies a bearish trend in a way. So the longs are pretty trapped, and until we see the opposing liquidity from 29,836, we're not going to really break this level. Now, where could that be? There is the 29,100 level over here that we want to hold for us to go up, and we have some fair value gaps again in this 29,000 level, and we see those on the daily. We have this demand that was engulfed that led us to a new high, so we expect this demand to be a good buy. We want this to be tapped over here, 29,090, and then maybe the middle gets swept, which is going to be 28,820, which is a key level for us to break before. That would be the most bullish if we just basically use this level and explode. And I wouldn't want to go much lower than that. I would want this one to hold. If we do sweep even lower, it could be pretty disastrous to lose these mid values. It could be huge sweeps before turning around. I'm really kind of bullish on this level for at least a good bounce, and either this one or this one. This one is a really good buy. But so if this is so good, then maybe we're just gonna get the bounce from here today. So let's see what happens today. As you know, AMD has been very bullish. I've been very bullish on it since it was $12 way back over here. And I've been calling its bottoms, nice cup and handle breakout from $59, and it retraced all the way over here. But the most important pattern in the recent times was this breaker block that was broken, and I was looking to buy pretty much near the top of this breaker block. I wanted this pretty bad at mid 180s, but we did not get that level, and instead started to turn, and we made this beautiful W. So basically my position was all in AMD in the low 200s, and that's basically what is the majority of the portfolio right now, is that. And what are we doing since then? If you are a long-term trader, I know you can also have bought Micron, other chips, STM, there's AVGO, lots of chips and semiconductor stocks that have just been the best investments and best swings. And now what are we doing? Are we just going to wait for this cup and handle to form and break out, which is pretty likely if this holds, or we're gonna have this kind of double top and go down? But you can see that SOXL, because it just shifted from this 3.618 down to the 2.618, it's very bullish, just a retrace from here to here, higher lows. So we're still in a bullish trend. We really have to lose all these levels to, get bearish, but I don't think we're going to do that until we at least hit potentially this quarter. Still has a whole week, so we don't know how crazy it can get, but we have that 327 that's sitting there, and these are huge swings. We're getting double from 140 to 280, and then another double from 160 to 300. So you're getting massive swings and abilities to, buy the dips and keep riding this. And if we do, and we see what's going to happen at 327, are we going to squeeze there and go nuclear, or are we going to reject from there, and correct quite a bit in the next quarter before we go up? So we're not really sure, but we have a good idea and a good plan for whatever's going to happen. You can see that on the 3-month chart, this is what we're dealing with. This is what's going to close in about 5 days. And this is a huge buy-side imbalance. This is what we tried to prepare for. And, if you were following me from any time in the last year, the last 2 years, you know that I actually gave the call for AMD to buy under $93, which is right over here. And you can see that it swept a little bit extra from 76.93, and that's how they get you, to really swipe everyone out. But it's only been in that price for a few days before turning back around. So this was the best price to buy in recent history, and since then we've gone up over fivefold. So that's a 500% gain in 2 years, well, a year and a half. It's not bad. And so I started Swing Trade Group to try to really help everyone to take position properly for long term, and then also trade daily on the Nasdaq if you want to make some income. But so far the long term portfolio has been a hold and just buying the dips really. And potentially just taking some profit near the end of June, which is what's been happening. But the dips are being bought from this 540 breakout level that was rejected a few times. We created a double bottom. So that's the story right now, is that we hit take profits and we quickly went back into a demand level and made bullish patterns on AMD and on QQQ and on SOXL. So we're technically still bullish. If this double bottom breaks out over 562, it's going to be pretty explosive. We're going to have targets in the 600s for AMD. But we might do a bigger liquidity sweep maybe today or tomorrow. But yesterday we had a nice pump up from this double bottom, and we did not, and we swept. They took the profit pretty intensely. You saw that yesterday morning. It really dived down, but it did not make a lower low. But today we're opening at 508. It aligns because of that Nasdaq rejection at 29,836. So we're looking for those low levels in the 29,100 and 28,820 potentially, for looking for buys, and we'll see that reaction. If we're going to get a huge stop run, obviously you want to wait for a confirmation to really see that we're going back up bullish. So those are some of the key takeaways from the end of this quarter so far. We're going to have a live session on next Tuesday. Let's see. We're going to have a live session next Tuesday, June 30th. We're going to review what I just mentioned today, see what happened in the next few days, and we're going to have chai, we're going to have pastries, we're just going to talk about the market, meet some traders who are in the area, anyone who's interested. And let's see how much it's changed from now until then. and then we'll see if we can position before quarter three, if we need to stay long before quarter three opens, or if we're gonna see if we have to, position and hedge properly, because we literally have gone up so much on these candles that there is so much room for retracement and diving down before continuing up in the next quarter. Look at the QQQ, biggest engulf. This is the demand area, so it can obviously keep going like we saw over here, and it just rockets right away to start the quarter. Very possible. So that's why, even though we hit the take profits, we've seen that the dips have been aggressively bought to make sure that they are potentially still in case this candle is going to keep going during this bubble. You can see after these expansive bullish candles from demand levels, the next candles have generally been pretty expansive following as well. So we're just being pretty tuned in to see what's going on. And if you saw, if you want to join the Discord, which is live trading every day, I called the rejection yesterday for 8:36. Let's see. I was on the chat live, but I did mention it. The 8:36 rejections. I have some members who we've been talking to. Called it. I know I told him at least individually afterwards when I mentioned it live on stream, but I'm giving these daily updates minute by minute, even sometimes in the mornings. I called that this whole demand, this bullish level, is going to be swept over here. We literally took this 169 into the 566. Now we're at this mid-level that was giving a little bounce, but we lost it now, and that's going to take us down to that 29,000s level down here, which is what we were hoping for the morning. So let's see. All of this is available on our Discord, and you can join in for free. I share some things for free once in a while, but you can gain access to the Patreon. We're trying to make a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 a day trading. So these fees, these are it's just for the value that I'm giving. It's very undervalued here because what I give can help make thousands a month or hundreds a day. So this is just to give value to what I'm sharing here. And we have discounts. We have a full week free trial that you should join in, especially to start up the next quarter. You can join on our live chats. You can see that we are, we try to make good profit on funded accounts, on brokerage accounts every single day. And we have daily pre-markets and recaps. And the main thing that you want to pay attention to is the live trading chat, which I'm constantly giving updates with all my analysis, all of my data that took 10 years to learn, and I try to share that with all of you, and I go live every morning from around between 8 and 11 a.m. Try to get as much action as possible, but after we hit our targets, you saw some days I hit my target at 9:31 a.m. and we just call it for the day. So we just don't try to overtrade, but we try to get all the opportunities that we can and build a life that we have freedom of time, freedom of focus and attention. So please take a look and prepare for quarter three, and remember to join us on Tuesday at Cowell Valley at 6 p.m. Should be really, really interesting. All right. So